And this was the battle I was going through. I don't want to call it a love or an addiction, or I don't know if it's the culture, but this materialism thing that was on my back that I'm trying to break, at least get better with and improve on, because I've discovered at this stage in my life, I actually get more joy getting rid of something, taking something out of my house than bringing something in my house, which wasn't that way for the first 40 years of my life. I got joy bringing things in my house. I did a challenge. I do it once a year. That's why I'm in my closet. There are 54 items in my closet right now, but I'm in a flipping big closet. So this is the conflict that I have. It's like, yeah, that's cool. I minimize my wardrobe down to 77 items, which I do every year. But, and I've definitely minimized the entire house, but I still have things that meet my criteria, that's why I want an expert on this today. My criteria is, does it provide joy? Does it serve a purpose? Or does it have deep meaning, like deep sentimental value? So when I hold something in my hand and I decide to get rid of it, does it provide joy? Does it serve a purpose? Or does it have deep meaning to me personally? But Joshua, if you don't know him, The More of Less is an amazing read. He's best known. I got to know him from a Netflix documentary on minimalism, and I researched him. And then we hung out at lunch. I dug into his blog, which is just amazing free content. We're all about free content in 2021. Becoming Minimalist has, I think, over 1 million readers every month, and his Facebook page has 2.1 million followers. So not only is he good, but the topic is interesting to people. Welcome, Joshua.
Well, it is good to be here. That's a beautiful introduction. Thank you. I don't know if I could have done it better, even if I did it myself.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just a fan. And what I want to do today, because I have questions right here coming up, and I want you guys to start your questions now. He is an expert in minimalism, and the way it fits so beautifully into the ULA lifestyle framework is that in ULA, we believe that you're designed by God for greatness and a purpose. You don't have to settle for an ordinary life, because something is placed inside of you that's built you for greatness. And the problem is you can't see the greatness under debt, under toxic relationships, and under all this stuff. Like you're so busy managing all of your stuff that you're distracted to really confront your purpose on this planet. And it can be so much better. So on the way, go ahead, man.
Can I jump in and just start saying stuff whenever I want?
Go. You're the expert, man. I'm the one trying to work through this in my head.
I always think to myself, not only does our passion get hidden, our goals and purposes get hidden by debt and stuff that we own, but I almost think I've begun to say that the world seems to hijack our passions and direct them towards whatever we want. Like we know our greatest purpose in life isn't to just own a whole bunch of stuff or make a lot of money so we can buy a whole bunch of stuff, but somewhere during our lives, maybe the fact that we see 5,000 advertisements every single day and they're all trying to convince us to buy more things, that this subtly becomes our draw, that we want a bigger house and we want a nicer car and we want trendier fashion and the newest technology and more toys. And like we begin actually chasing things that have nothing to do with our greatest purpose, almost as if the world and society and culture hijacked those passions and directed them towards things that don't actually matter.
And what I love about your approach to this is, rather than just organization and rather than just decluttering, which is valuable in itself, spring cleaning feels amazing, right? Cleaning out a garage feels great. There's something about that feels good. But your perspective on it, especially in the book that I read that I love so much, The More of Less, it handles the mindset piece. So can you speak more into the mindset piece of not just, we're being bombarded with ads, which we are, and we're being told that we're less than if we don't have this. And every ad is selling you on emotion that you're missing this one thing in your life that I'm selling you. And if you get this one thing I'm selling you, then your life will be complete. All of that, we call it being punked. Like we're being punked to believing that there's an outside source that's going to provide a solution to our happiness when we know it's an inside game. But what does the mindset do? When you start getting rid of this stuff, how do you handle the mindset piece?
So the mindset piece is about, I think for me, it was about embracing intentionality in my life to a greater degree than I had before, because I thought I was living an intentional life. But I remember the moment I noticed it, because I started minimizing our things. This was 12 years ago. We got rid of about 60, 70% of our stuff. We were living in Vermont at the time. Now I'm down in Phoenix. But we began taking like literally minivan loads full of things to Goodwill. I had 2 kids, so I took about 3 van loads of things to Goodwill, just boxes full of stuff that I didn't need. And I began wrestling with, like, why did I have so much stuff in my house that I didn't need? Like, why did I have 3 van loads of things that didn't need to be in my house? Or even the more basic question, like, what compels me to buy things that I don't need? Like, what really is the motivation? Why would we go buy stuff that we don't need to have in our lives? And man, it kind of sent me down in this, like, digging into my heart and discovering things I didn't really want to discover about jealousy and greed and selfishness and trying to impress other people and trying to measure up and falling into sales and flyers and ads. And I began to realize that I wasn't living my life nearly as intentional as I thought I was, because no one intentionally goes out and buys a whole bunch of things that they don't need. And so for me, it was about, so what do I want my life to be about? Like, what are my values and what are my purposes? And then what are all the things that I've accumulated that are keeping me from it? What are all the things I'm chasing that are keeping me from that purpose? And then I need to get rid of that stuff so I can fulfill my purpose even to greater degrees than I ever thought imaginable, which actually became my definition of minimalism. And it pertains a lot to material possessions, but it goes beyond that. But minimalism is the intentional promotion of the things I most value by removing anything from my life that distracts me from it. And so I minimize distractions so I can maximize potential and purpose.
I mean, I love it, and that's again where we're in complete alignment on that, and that's the mindset piece I think people miss when they just simply declutter, is that you're removing things that don't matter to create a space for a life that does matter, and
Yeah.
that's the thing that everyone is seeking. Everyone is seeking not a quick hit high, which are those emotional purchases that you come home and you feel that endorphin release from that thing that you got 50% off that was 25% off. And if you got the card, it was another 15% off. And you just put that big plastic thing somewhere and you end up moving the plastic thing to get to the thing you need the rest of your life because you didn't need it. So I think that brings me to the strategic part of this. So on these short lives that we do every day with our crowd, I want a tactical to do, like something tactically they can do. For me, it was minimizing my wardrobe to 77 items, just to exercise that part of my brain that I haven't wore this for a year, even though it was expensive, or even though this, and even though I exercise the muscle that it can leave the house and I won't die. Like, it'll be okay. So what is something that people can do today who knows that they're being buried in their stuff? They know that it's holding them back from something better. It's holding them back from their purpose. What can they do in the next 24 hours to move forward?
Okay, so let me give you 2, and let me start first with the person who doesn't who isn't in, like, they're not ready to go declutter something, and then for those people who are. So first thing to do, I'm telling you, even the short list will totally transform the way you look at physical possessions. Sit down with a sheet of paper and ask yourself, if I were to own fewer possessions, how would my life improve? And get as practical as you possibly can. Start with, I would have less cleaning to do. Like, just start with less cleaning. And then if I own less stuff, I could find my car keys easier. It would be easier to get ready in the morning, so I could save time. I would save money because I'd be buying fewer things. I'd be a better life for the environment. I'd be setting a better example for my kids. If I own less stuff, I could be more generous. I would compare myself less with other people, less stress in my life. Like just make a list. Every time I go and speak, I have the group, unless it's thousands of people, like turn to your neighbor and answer the question, how would your life improve if you own less stuff? Because no one struggles with that question. Like how my life would improve comes pretty quick in very practical ways. And once you start seeing that, it becomes desirable. Like, yes, I want more money. I want more time. I want less stress. The New York Times a couple of years ago ran an article and called the modern American generation the most tired, stressed, hurried generation of all time. And of course, it's because we own more stuff than anybody in human history. And so once you make that list, then you go find one area that you can complete decluttering in. People think about minimizing possessions and they want to go start in the garage or the basement or the attic, or like getting rid of like sentimental photos. And I'm like, no, start easy. Go declutter your car. Like just go take everything out of your car that doesn't need to be there, or maybe a dining room or a living room, a space that you can complete in a reasonable amount of time, a space that you spend time in, because the next time you sit down in that room or the next time you sit down in that car, it will feel calmer. It will feel more peaceful. It will feel more intentional. It will feel like you can focus more on your life and who you want to be and what you want to do. Literally, just removing possessions offers that opportunity. And when you finish one space, you'll be compelled to go finish another space and another space and another space. And eventually you work your way to the garage. But I think too many people get frustrated trying to tackle the hardest thing first.
Yeah, they get paralyzed and don't make any moves. So I'm gonna start looking at questions. Ask your questions right now. There's a bunch of people commenting right now. I see all of your comments going.
Nice.
But ask the question for Joshua. I'm gonna ask my question, and it's the same pretty much question I asked you last time we had lunch. But this is where I am with this issue. I love the idea of minimalism. I love the idea and deeply believe the value of removing things that don't matter, that distract us, to create this space to build a life that does matter, that's connected to our God-given purpose. 100% know that to be truth. But there's a piece of me that still likes nice things. Like if I go through my list, and I know I'm evolving as a human being, right? The things that provided me joy in my 20s the material things in my 30s. I'm evolving as a human being. But when I thought of minimalism as minimalism, when I think of the topic, I had my own judgments of what minimalism was. Like living on a dirt floor, and we both have black shirts on, all wearing black shirts, and just like nothing. One fork, one knife. That's what I thought minimalism was. Now I know differently, right? So how do I balance what I feel, and I may find later not to be true, as a materialistic item that brings me joy, and the need to get rid of it? And how does someone do that? That, hey, no, I like X. Someone likes fashion. It truly gives them joy. Or someone likes a nice house. Or someone likes, how do you balance that and understand that you're not, like, am I being punked, or is that okay?
Okay, so a whole bunch of thoughts. How many questions are we gonna try to get through? Okay.
Yeah, no, that's just one. Just take my one. I'm gonna look at theirs.
I'm just kidding. I just get so passionate about all this stuff. So number one, minimalism is always going to look different from one person to another, and owning less is going to look different based on your career, based on your family, based on your hobbies, based on what you want to accomplish with your life. Like it's all going to look different. Number one. Number two, when you first said nice things, I was reminded one thing that I always try to remind people, and that is that minimalism isn't the same as frugality. Like some people are minimalist because they're frugal, but they don't necessarily have to be the same. In fact, I discovered as I started owning fewer things, I was able to own higher quality things. If I didn't need 15 pairs of pants in my closet, then I could own 3 or 4 that were a little bit nicer and fit me better and lasted a little bit longer, and I could spend more money on them. I once had a meeting with like an ad executive, and he's like, I have to look really successful when I go into these meetings, or I'm not going to get hired as their ad executive. And so I can never be minimalist. I'm like, yes, you can. Like, you can still own nice suits. You can still own a nice watch. You just don't need 20 nice suits. You can only wear one at a time anyway. And so, so minimalism looks different from person to person. Minimalism isn't about being cheap. In fact, I think we typically find ourselves buying higher quality things that we love, that last. It almost brings, in a paradoxical way, it almost brings more intentionality and purpose to the things we buy. Now, that being said, the third piece then, like, what does that mean for cars and houses or fancy artwork, like really expensive things, very luxurious things that I want to buy? And I'm not here to make any statements, any judgments. I don't know anybody really well. For me, when I started seeing that my life and my time and my money didn't have to be spent on material possessions, but could be spent on making a real difference in the world. What I felt God called me to do, and who he wanted me to be. When I put more resources there, I found more joy in that than buying a nicer car, a nicer house, artwork, whatever it might be. And so, on its surface, buying a really nice car, having a really nice house isn't counter to living a minimalist life. For me, it was a second step in, okay, but if I could afford to buy a luxury car, but I can do more good in the world if I just buy a reliable one, like that, like where I found joy actually began to shift when I started embracing new intentional thinking in my resources.
I
So
love it. I mean, and I think, I mean, that's the evolution of us as human beings. And I think, I mean, that's just I love every time I chat with you too, because it continues to challenge me as a human being to be a better human being, because it really gets to the core of why we're on this planet. And I believe we're on this planet not only to discover our skills, gifts, and abilities, but also to become a community and share those with other people. So we live in silos, especially in the last year. Like, we live in these little like dots that we stand on at the grocery store, and then we stand on a dot here, and we're not community anymore. And I believe that whether it's time or money or whatever, I think that's the area that we share. So I love it, man. There are a ton of people hanging out. There's so many questions. I'm going to pick one because we try to keep these to 20 minutes. But someone asked, how do I get rid of my kids' stuff?
okay, so you do not begin by making your kids get rid of their stuff. I speak to a lot of moms groups, and the first question is, how do I help my kids get rid of their stuff? And I always say, you cannot go home from hearing about minimalism, hearing about decluttering, and make someone else in your family go first. So can't make your kids get rid of their things, can't make your spouse get rid of theirs. You start with your own stuff. And by start with your own stuff, I mean start with all of your own stuff. You go through your bedroom, your living room, your closet, your kitchen, your office. You do your work. And when you do, your kids, number one, will see you leading by example. Number two, they'll ask, and you articulate, like, I'm getting rid of these things so we can vacation more as a family, so that I can spend less time cleaning and more time playing games with you. Like, you will articulate these benefits along the way, and they will know that their room is coming. Like, they'll know you're going to get to the toy room eventually. They know you're going to get to their bedroom eventually. They'll be thankful every time you handle a different room. But by the time you get to their room, they'll be ready for it. They'll know it's coming. You will have learned, whether this is easy or hard, you will have learned some tricks and some tips along the way. Well, let's just put these things in a different room for a little while and see if you actually need them. And then when you do get to actually decluttering kids' stuff, physical boundaries are the phrase. Physical boundaries is the solution that you need. You can keep whatever toys you want as long as they fit against this wall, or you can keep whatever toys if they fit in this closet. You can keep whatever work you want as long as it fits in this bin, or your clothes have to fit in these drawers. Like, you set the boundaries and then you enable them to make the decisions about, okay, I can have this many toys. I'm going to keep this one. I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm going to keep this one. And they can physically see, if I keep this, then I have to get rid of that. And it will empower them to make these decisions, which is actually a life skill that we all need. Like, we all live our lives in boundaries: money, time, space, energy. And learning the skill of putting the most important things into our lives first and foremost is something that your kids are going to need the rest of their life, and you can help them learn it now.
And it's super
One
legacy
last thing,
building.
one
Go ahead, man.
more final thing. The older the kid, I think the harder it is to get started. Like, this makes sense. If I have a 17-year-old at home and 17 years I've let them live their life one way, I'm not going to flip the switch in a moment. If it's a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5-year-old, then they're a little more able to have those conversations. But so age appropriate changes that we're asking for as well.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's a legacy move too, by the way. If they're watching us, and if we're organized and we're not infatuated with materialism, they won't be. If we're not infatuated with debt, they won't be. So it's the stuff we can teach our kids, and they'll be watching. So, hey man, always a pleasure. Super big advocate, super big fan. This is actually a prequel to you living your ULA life, is creating a space that can build a life that matters by removing the things that don't. Joshua Becker, becomingminimalist.com, Becoming Minimalist on Facebook. Follow his stuff. I know he's always writing something, so something will be coming up, sure. And just, that's where you can find out first. I'll be buying, I'll be reading, and I'll be continuing to challenge myself to live on less so I can serve people better. Until we see you guys next time, be grateful, have faith, and go get your ULA life.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, brother.